My name is Eleanor Hartley. I'm 31 years old. 4 months ago, I traveled 20 hours to watch my younger sister get married. When I arrived at the reception venue, my own parents positioned themselves directly in front of me and said I couldn't stay. Family only, they told me. You weren't on the guest list. I stood there in the dress I'd chosen 6 weeks earlier, clutching the gift I'd wrapped the night before in my hotel room, and watched my mother's expression remain completely blank. No shame, no hesitation, just a door slamming shut. I'd signed every single vendor agreement for that wedding, every contract, my name, my credit card, deposits paid months in advance without question. 3 days later, my mother called, not to apologize. She called about an outstanding bill, $28,000. And what I said in response to her, she absolutely didn't expect. Before I continue, I need to ask something of you. If this story lands properly, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Only if it genuinely speaks to you, though. And if you could drop your location and what time you're hearing this, I'd genuinely love to know. Now let me take you back to last October, the moment everything began to fracture. It was a Tuesday evening in Leeds, October rain hammering against my flat window. My phone lit up with a FaceTime request from Sophie, my younger sister. Sophie's 24, just finished her degree, still living within 15 minutes of our parents in a village called Ashford-in-the-Water, Derbyshire. I answered. Her face appeared glowing. Behind her, I could see our mum, Catherine, fussing with something on the kitchen counter. I'm engaged, Sophie practically screamed, pushing a diamond ring toward the camera. Marcus proposed last night at the Botanical Gardens. It was perfect, Eleanor. Absolutely perfect. I felt genuine joy rise in my chest. Sophie, that's incredible. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Thank you. Marcus's family is thrilled. The Ashtons have already offered their country estate for the reception. Can you even believe it? I knew the Ashtons. Everyone in that corner of Derbyshire did. They owned significant property holdings across 3 counties. Marcus Ashton was the youngest son, polished, attractive, came from serious money. Old money. Mum, come say hello to Eleanor, Sophie said, tilting the phone. Catherine leaned into the frame. She smiled, but it never quite reached her eyes. Hello, love. Wonderful news, isn't it? It really is, I said. I'm already thinking about flights. When are you planning for? A pause. Catherine exchanged a glance with Sophie, then back to me. Well, don't rush to book anything expensive. It'll be quite intimate. Really. Very low-key. Mum, it's Sophie's wedding. I'm absolutely coming. We'll see how things develop. Anyway, we've got mountains of planning ahead. Sophie will fill you in on the details. She stepped out of frame. Sophie talked for another 12 minutes about florals and color schemes and the marquee they were considering. I made notes. I smiled through the phone. But something settled in my stomach, heavy and cold. That was the first indication I should have paid closer attention to how deliberately my mother was trying to discourage me from attending. 2 weeks later, Catherine rang. Not Sophie. Catherine. A Wednesday morning, which meant it was still Tuesday night in Yorkshire, which meant she'd been thinking about this all evening. Eleanor, I need to discuss something practical regarding the wedding. Of course. What do you need? The caterers require a credit card on file to secure the booking. Your father and I, well, you know how things are financially. The refinance has been complicated. Sophie's just finished university. She hasn't established any credit history. I was already leaning back in my chair, already knowing exactly where this conversation was heading. The venue needs the same arrangement, Catherine continued. The florist, the photographer. 4 separate contracts, all requiring someone with solid credit. Someone like you. How much are we discussing? Altogether, around £27,000. But you'd only need to provide a deposit of £2,500 initially. The remainder would be collected after the event. $27,000. My name. My credit card. For a wedding I hadn't been asked to contribute to. For costs I hadn't been consulted about. That's quite substantial, Mum. It's not actually your money, Eleanor. Your name is simply on the paperwork. Your father and I will absolutely manage the final payments. I promise you. I'd heard that promise before. When I was 21, I'd co-signed a car loan for my father. It took 3 years to untangle myself from that mess. When I was 27, I wired my mother £200 for what she called a plumbing emergency. It turned out to be Sophie's university accommodation fees. But this was my sister's wedding. I was the older sister. The one with a stable career in software development. The one with a decent salary and a good credit rating. The one with no one depending on me. Fine, I said. Send me the contracts. I signed everything that week without reading the fine print carefully. Over the next 4 months, the wedding developed and I watched it unfold from the absolute periphery. Sophie created a WhatsApp group called the Ashton Wedding Squad. I wasn't added. I discovered it by accident when she forwarded me something intended for the group. Photos of potential bridesmaid dresses with, "Vote here, ladies." Underneath, I wasn't one of the ladies. I rung Sophie twice about dress codes and seating arrangements, and whether she wanted me to prepare remarks. The first time she promised she'd get back to me. The second time she let it ring through and texted later, "Madness with planning, we'll catch up soon." I called Catherine to ask if there was anything else I could help organize. She said, "Everything's taken care of, love. You don't need to worry about anything." I never received a formal invitation. Not printed, not digital. But I convinced myself that was normal. I was family. You don't send your own sister an official invitation. She's simply there. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Sophie uploaded a photo on Instagram. An evening reception at a restaurant in Ashford-in-the-Water. Sophie in a cream dress, surrounded by bridesmaids, Catherine beaming beside her. The caption read, "With everyone who really matters, my whole world." I stared at that photograph for nearly 12 minutes. I genuinely timed it. I wasn't in it. I hadn't been invited to the rehearsal dinner. I almost rang, almost asked why I was excluded. But I talked myself out of it. Perhaps the rehearsal was reserved for the wedding party. Perhaps they assumed I couldn't get time off work. Perhaps I was being paranoid about nothing. I set my alarm. I had a flight to catch. I'd requested a full week of annual leave. I only received 20 days per year. And I was spending 5 of them on this. My flights, Leeds to London, London to Birmingham, Birmingham to my hotel, cost £1,100. 4 nights at the only decent hotel in the village, £520. Sophie's wedding gift, a set of premium kitchen knives she'd mentioned wanting during a random FaceTime months previous, £480. Altogether, £2, 100 out of my own pocket before even arriving. Somewhere over the channel on the first leg, I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I'd been drafting remarks for weeks. Nothing lengthy, maybe 90 seconds. I wanted to tell the story about how Sophie used to make me play wedding with her stuffed animals when she was small. How she'd always assign me the role of the vicar, never the bride. I thought it was funny. I thought people would laugh. I practiced it twice with my headphones in, whispering under my breath, so the woman in the neighboring seat wouldn't think I'd completely lost it. When we touched down in London for the connection, I messaged Catherine, "Just landed in London. 1 more flight. Really looking forward to seeing everyone." No response for 50 minutes. Then, just before final boarding, "Okay, see you tomorrow." 3 words, no exclamation mark, no safe travels, no excitement. I stared at that message whilst the gate agent called for boarding. I nearly screenshot it and sent it to my friend Gemma in Leeds with the caption, "Am I being paranoid or is this genuinely odd?" But I didn't. I silenced my phone, boarded the plane, and told myself that everything would settle once I arrived. 20 hours of travel. 3 words in response. I checked into the Willow House Hotel at 9:15 on a Friday evening. The receptionist smiled and asked if I was in town for the Ashton Hartley wedding. Apparently, the whole village knew about it. I said I was. She said, "How lovely." "You must be a family friend," I said. Something like that. And something inside me went very quiet. The room was small but pleasant. I hung my dress in the wardrobe, a deep navy piece I'd found at a boutique in the city center. I placed the wrap knife set on the desk, propped my phone against the lamp, and rang Sophie. It went to voicemail. I texted Catherine, "Just checked in. What time should I arrive at the venue tomorrow?" 55 minutes passed. Then, ceremony at 2 p.m. That was all. No, come early. No, let's have breakfast first. No, your father's looking forward to seeing you. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. I'd traveled 20 hours. I'd spent nearly £2,100 of my own money. I'd signed contracts totaling £27,000, and my mother couldn't manage more than 2 words at a time. The last time I'd been back to Derbyshire was 2 years previous for my grandmother's funeral. Catherine barely acknowledged me that entire day. She spent the service whispering to Sophie and greeting mourners. At the wake afterward, someone asked Catherine how many children she had. She said, "Just the one, Sophie." I was standing 6 feet away holding a plate of sandwiches. I ironed my dress that night like I was preparing for a job interview, which in some ways I was. I was auditioning to be part of my own family. I lay in bed unable to sleep. The hotel had thin walls, and the couple next door was watching sport at full volume. But it wasn't the noise keeping me awake. It was the arithmetic. £200 for this trip. £27,000 pending on my credit card. 6 years of sending money home every time Catherine called with a new crisis. The boiler needing replacement. Sophie's car insurance. The property tax shortfall. I'd never added it up. I was frightened too. But lying there in the darkness, I did something far worse. I added up something else entirely. The calls that never came. The birthdays where Catherine texted HBD at 11 p.m. or forgot altogether. The Christmas I attempted a FaceTime and no one answered because they were at the Hendersons' party and hadn't bothered mentioning it. The graduation photos on Catherine's mantle. 3 of Sophie, 0 of me. If I continued like this, paying and showing up and pretending the silence didn't wound me, what would I ultimately lose? Not money. I'd lose myself. I'd become the woman who purchases her own place at the table and still gets relegated to the children's corner. The woman who writes checks and receives footnotes. But that night, I chose to believe one final time. Perhaps tomorrow would be different. Perhaps Catherine was simply overwhelmed with wedding preparations. Perhaps Sophie was genuinely drowning in final details. Perhaps when I walked through those doors, my mother would pull me into an embrace and say, "I'm so relieved you're here." Perhaps I closed my eyes and made myself a promise. This is the last occasion you'll show up hoping for something these people have never freely given you. Tomorrow you'll discover whether hope alone is sufficient. Sleep came fitfully. Saturday, 1:50 in the afternoon. Ashton House sat on 14 acres of manicured grounds just outside the village. Pale stone. Wisteria climbing the walls, a gravel drive lined with white ribbons and trailing ivy leading to the entrance. The photographs would be stunning. I parked my rental car at the far end of the lot. 30 or 40 vehicles were already there. Range Rovers, Audis, a few Bentleys that screamed old money. Guests drifted toward the house in small groups, clutching programs and adjusting fascinators. I straightened my dress, picked up the gift box, and walked toward the entrance. My heels crunched on the gravel. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and lavender from the gardens. I spotted my father first. Richard stood near the entrance in a morning suit that didn't quite fit his shoulders correctly. He was shaking hands with an older gentleman I didn't recognize, probably someone from the Ashton side. When Richard looked up and saw me, his face changed entirely. The polite smile vanished. His eyes widened, then narrowed, then dropped to his shoes. He didn't wave. He didn't approach. He turned and went inside. I kept walking, 12 yards from the entrance. 8:05, the double doors opened and Catherine stepped out. She wore a mother-of-the-bride dress in champagne silk. Her hair was professionally done. Her makeup was perfect. Her jaw was set like iron. She positioned herself directly in my path, hands clasped in front of her, not open, not welcoming, a physical barrier. Eleanor. Her voice was controlled, quiet. "Hello, Mum. I made it." She didn't hug me. She didn't move aside. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for Sophie's wedding, Eleanor. You need to leave now." The words landed like a physical blow. I blinked. The gift box suddenly felt impossibly heavy. "What?" "Lower your voice. People are watching." Her eyes darted to guests passing behind me. "Mum, I'm your daughter." Catherine stepped closer. close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same Estee Lauder she'd worn throughout my entire life. Her voice became a whisper that cut deeper than any shout. "Only family is permitted inside. You weren't invited." I stood there. The gravel shifted beneath my heels. A couple in their 60s walked past, smiling politely. Catherine smiled back. The instant they passed, her face returned to stone. "Not invited," I said. "I signed every single contract for this wedding. I paid the deposits." "This isn't about finances, Eleanor. This is about what's proper. Proper. Please don't make a scene. Your father is stressed. Everyone is looking." Through the half-open doors behind her, I could see white chairs arranged in rows, garlands of greenery draped from the ceiling, a string quartet tuning instruments near the altar. Everything I'd funded with my signature. Richard appeared in the doorway. He looked at Catherine, then at me, then at the ground. He placed his hands in his pockets and said absolutely nothing. From inside, a woman's voice called out, warm, confident, distinctly authoritative. "Catherine, is everything all right out here?" I saw Catherine's spine straighten. I saw her apply a fresh smile before turning halfway toward the voice. That voice, I would learn in about 3 seconds, belonged to Victoria Ashton, Marcus's mother. The woman who'd apparently been told that the Hartleys only had one daughter. Victoria Ashton stepped through the doors in a lavender dress and pearls. She was tall, silver-haired, the sort of woman who organizes the church fundraiser, and still has energy to manage her own estate. She carried herself like someone who'd never experienced public embarrassment, not once. "Catherine, everything all right?" Victoria's gaze settled on me. She smiled, open and expectant. Catherine switched on like a light. Her voice became honey-warm. "Oh, nothing at all, Victoria. Just a distant relative who's confused about the schedule. Happens with larger events, doesn't it? Distant relative." She said it whilst looking directly at me. Victoria studied my face carefully. "Oh, I thought you mentioned you only had one daughter, Catherine." The silence lasted perhaps 2 seconds. It felt considerably longer. Catherine laughed. A bright, brittle sound that didn't belong to her. "I do have one daughter. This is a cousin visiting from abroad. She's simply got the time wrong." Victoria nodded slowly, glanced at me once more, then touched Catherine's arm. "Well, the ceremony begins in 10 minutes. We should go inside." Victoria returned into the house. The doors closed gently behind her. I looked at my mother. She looked at me. In her eyes, there was no guilt, no shame, no flicker of remorse or apology, just fear. Raw, animal fear. The kind that surfaces when a lie you've been maintaining for months is about to strangle you. "A cousin," I said quietly. "Eleanor, please. You don't understand how complicated. How long have you been telling people I don't exist?" She didn't answer. She glanced toward the car park, willing me to disappear. That's when the understanding arrived. She hadn't forgotten to invite me. She'd erased me. And she'd been doing it for years. Every part of me wanted to walk through those doors and announce it loud enough for Victoria, Marcus, and every guest in that house to hear. "My name is Eleanor Hartley. I'm Catherine's eldest daughter. I paid for every flower, every plate, every note that string quartet is playing. I didn't." I looked at the house, the ribbons, the ivy, the warm golden glow through the windows. I looked at my mother, still blocking my path like a sentry. I looked at my father's silhouette just inside the entrance, shoulders hunched, hands in his pockets. And I made a decision. I crouched down and placed the gift box gently on the stone step, as though it mattered, as though it meant something. "Keep the gift," I said. "It's for Sophie." Catherine's shoulders dropped fractionally. Relief washed across her face. She thought it was finished. "Thank you, Eleanor. This is really for the—" "Don't," I said, raising one hand. "Don't explain. Don't justify. I heard you." I turned and walked back down the gravel path, past the ribbons, past the arriving couple, holding hands and laughing about the heat, past my rental car, and then to it. I opened the door, sat down and closed it, then I cried. Not loudly. The quiet kind. The kind where your chest heaves but your mouth stays closed. Because even completely alone, you've been trained not to make a scene. I sat there for perhaps 12 minutes. Through the open windows, I heard the string quartet begin Pachelbel's canon. The ceremony was starting. I started the engine and drove away from Ashton House. In the rearview mirror, it shrank to a speck of light. I didn't slam a single door. I didn't raise my voice once. I simply left, and for the first time, leaving felt like the most powerful thing I'd ever done. I drove back to the Willow House Hotel on autopilot. The roads were empty. Everyone in the village was at the wedding, apparently. Inside my room, I removed my heels and sat on the bed, still wearing my dress, mascara smudged from yesterday, hands shaking slightly. The remarks I'd written were still open in my notes app. I closed them without reading through. Then I opened my laptop. 4 emails sat in my inbox from the past 2 weeks. Confirmations from vendors, all addressed to me as the contract holder. I'd skimmed them when they arrived. Now I read every word carefully. Ashton House. Contract holder, Eleanor Hartley. Deposit paid £800. Remaining balance, £9,800. Due within 5 business days post-event, Manchester Catering Company. Contract holder, Eleanor Hartley. Deposit paid £650. Remaining balance, £8,900. Due within 5 business days post-event. Bloomsbury Floral Designs. Contract holder, Eleanor Hartley. Deposit paid £600. Remaining balance £4,200 photography. Contract holder, Eleanor Hartley. Deposit paid £450. Remaining balance $3,450. I scrolled through each one. My name. My card details. My signature scanned and attached. Every contract structured identically. Deposit up front. Balance following the event. Total deposits already paid £2,500. Gone. Total outstanding balance £28,000. I closed the laptop and sat very still. Ashton House was probably mid-reception by now. Toasts being delivered. Catherine hugging Sophie. Marcus dancing with his bride. The Ashtons clinking glasses with their new relations. All of it funded by someone they'd just called a cousin. I didn't make any calls that evening. I didn't fire off angry emails. I simply sat on that hotel bed and let the numbers repeat in my head. 28,000. My name. Their celebration. My phone rang at 9:42 that night. The caller ID read Aunt Margaret. Margaret Thornton, my mother's older sister, 64, formerly a headmistress. The sort of woman who says precisely what she thinks and has never once apologized for it. Catherine calls her difficult. Everyone else calls her truthful. Eleanor, where are you? I didn't see you at the wedding. I was there. Aunt Margaret. I just didn't make it inside. What do you mean you didn't make it inside? I told her. Everything. The blocked entrance. The whisper. Only family. The word cousin. Victoria Ashton's question. Catherine's answer. Silence on the line. A long one. I could hear Margaret breathing. Slow, deliberate, measured. The way she does when she's calculating exactly how angry to be. She told them you don't exist, Margaret said finally. Her voice was flat, controlled, like a kettle about to boil. She told Victoria Ashton she only has one daughter. Yes. Lord have mercy, Margaret said quietly. Eleanor, listen to me carefully. During the reception, your mother stood up to make remarks, she said, and I'm quoting her directly. To our beautiful daughter, Sophie. From Frank and myself. She introduced the Hartleys like that, just the 3 of them. I sat there thinking it was strange. I almost said something. I wish I had. It's not your fault, Aunt Margaret. No, it's not. It's Catherine's, and she's going to hear about it. But first, Eleanor, I need to ask you something. These vendor contracts for the wedding, whose name are they under? Mine. All of them. All of them. Every single one. Margaret went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted, still angry, but with something else underneath. Something harder. Something strategic. Then you listen to me very carefully, love. Your mother stood in front of a room full of people and told them you don't exist. You don't owe that room a single penny. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm starting to. Sunday morning. I woke to a notification from Instagram. Sophie had posted a carousel. 14 photos. The first. The 2 of them at the altar. Sophie in white lace, Marcus in a charcoal suit, Ashton House glowing gold behind them. The second, the family portrait. Richard, Catherine, Sophie, Marcus, Victoria, and Robert Ashton. 6 people. 2 families united. 1 family with a missing daughter. The caption read, surrounded by everyone who truly matters. Ashton forever. I read it 3 times, then I opened my email. The venue's invoice had arrived overnight. Automated. Cheerful. With a small line drawing of the house in the header. Thank you for choosing Ashton House. Your remaining balance of £9,800 is due by Friday, October 27th. Below it, invoices from the caterer, florist, and photographer. All time-stamped Saturday evening. All addressed to Eleanor Hartley. All with 5-day deadlines. $28,000 due Friday. I looked at the Instagram photo again. Everyone who truly matters. Then I looked at the invoices. Something shifted inside me. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. More like a lock turning. A door that had been stuck for years finally moving freely. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would come later. In waves, at 3 in the morning, in the shower, during meetings I couldn't concentrate on. Right now, sitting in that hotel room on a Sunday morning in Derbyshire, I felt something cleaner, clarity. I was the only person who'd paid for this wedding. I was the only person absent from those photographs. And I was the only person receiving invoices for a celebration I'd been expelled from. Something had to change. And it wouldn't be me. Not this time. Sunday afternoon. My phone lit up with a voicemail from Sophie. Not a call. She didn't attempt actual conversation. Just a recorded message like she was ticking off a task. I pressed play. Hey, Eleanor. So the wedding was absolutely perfect. Like genuinely flawless. Ashton House looked incredible. Marcus's family was really lovely. Anyway, sorry everything got a bit weird yesterday. Mum said it was for the best. And honestly, I think she was right. It would have been complicated to explain, but I wanted to say thank you for helping with all the vendor stuff. Seriously, you're the best big sister. Let's catch up soon, okay? Love you. I listened to it twice. Sorry everything got a bit weird. Not I'm sorry Mum turned you away at the door. Not I should have stood up for you. Not I had no idea I would have fought for you. Mum said it was for the best. Sophie knew. Before the wedding, she knew. She knew Catherine would turn me away and she'd accepted it. She probably helped plan it. And then that final line, "You're the best big sister." I used to love hearing that. It made me feel valued. Like all the sacrifices meant something. But sitting in that hotel room with yesterday's mascara still faintly smudged on the pillowcase, I heard it differently. She only calls me that when she needs something. Only when she needs something. I didn't call her back. I didn't text. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The invoices were due Friday. My family had just told 110 people I didn't exist. And my sister had left me a voicemail that essentially said, "Thanks for paying." I had 4 days to decide who I was going to be. Sunday night, lying alone. I opened my laptop and searched, am I legally responsible for vendor contracts I signed for someone else's event? The answers were consistent. The person whose name is on the contract holds the legal obligation, but that person also holds authority. I could authorize payment. I could refuse it. I could redirect the invoices to the people who'd actually benefited from the services. I picked up my phone and called Ashton House. It rang twice. A professional voice answered. "Good evening, Ashton House. This is Julian speaking." "Hello, Julian. My name is Eleanor Hartley. I'm the contract holder for the wedding event held on Saturday." "Yes, Miss Hartley. A beautiful celebration. How can I assist you?" "I'm ringing to inform you formally that I will not be authorizing the final payment on this contract. I was not present at the event. I'm requesting that the outstanding balance be redirected to the event organizers." A pause. "I see. May I ask if there's a dispute regarding the services?" "No dispute. I'm simply not authorizing the charge. The invoice should go to Catherine and Richard Hartley in Ashford in the Waiter." Julian took my email address, confirmed the request, and said someone would follow up on Monday. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called Manchester Catering. Same measured voice, same straightforward response. Then Bloomsbury Floral, then Hartwell Photography, 4 calls. 12 minutes total. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten anything. I simply said one word repeatedly, politely, and firmly. No, when I finished, I closed the laptop, brushed my teeth, and slept through the night for the first time in 2 days. Monday morning, I changed my flight. Instead of staying through Wednesday as originally planned, I booked the earliest available seat back to Leeds, a 5:45 a.m. departure through Birmingham. I packed in 8 minutes, checked out before dawn. The same receptionist was on shift. She smiled and asked, "How was the wedding?" "Unforgettable," I said. The drive to Birmingham took 90 minutes. On the way, I passed through Ashford-in-the-Water one final time. The high street was quiet. Just the cafe, the bookshop, the church where I was christened at 3 months old. I drove past the house I grew up in. The front light was still burning. I could picture the scene inside. Catherine at the kitchen table reviewing the reception photographs. Richard reading the newspaper. The house full of leftover cake and congratulations cards. My name not mentioned once. When I was 9, Catherine told me, "Eleanor, you're the older sister. You have to be strong for Sophie." I'd been strong for 22 years. Strong through Sophie's childhood hospitalization, the meningitis scare that restructured our entire family dynamic. Strong through every financial crisis, every unanswered call, every holiday I spent alone in Leeds, telling myself the time zone difference was the reason, not the distance. I turned onto the motorway and didn't look back. 17 hours later, I landed at Leeds Bradford, pale sky drizzle, the most beautiful weather I'd encountered in days. I turned on my phone in the arrivals area. No missed calls, no texts. Nobody in Derbyshire had noticed I was gone or cared enough to check. But they would notice soon. The vendors would start calling by Tuesday. The invoices would arrive by Wednesday. Then my phone would ring. I was absolutely certain of that. Tuesday, 3:15 p.m., Leeds time, 9:15 a.m. Derbyshire. My phone rang. Mum appeared on the screen. I let it ring 3 times, then I answered. "Eleanor. Hello, love." Sweet, light, the voice she uses when she wants something. "Hi, Mum. How was your journey back?" "Fine. Good, thank you. Listen, I've just received the strangest call from Ashton House. They're saying you've removed your payment authorization. The outstanding balance is £28,000. How do we address this?" "We don't, Mum. You do." Silence. I removed my authorization because I'm not responsible for an event I wasn't invited to. That's straightforward. Eleanor, don't be dramatic. This was simply a misunderstanding. We can discuss it properly. You introduced me as a distant relative to Victoria Ashton. You told her you only have one daughter. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. Longer silence. I could hear her breathing shift, the sweetness evaporating. "After everything I've done for you," she said quietly, "this is how you repay me? You raised me. I'm grateful for that. But you also stood in front of your daughter and told a stranger she doesn't exist. Both things are true. You're being unreasonable. Your father is stressed. His blood pressure is elevated. If something happens to him, that's on you." Dad stood right there and said nothing. He made his choice. Silence. I could hear her swallow. "You said I wasn't family," I continued. "So the family's bill is the family's responsibility." The line went dead. She'd hung up. No goodbye, no argument, just a click and silence. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and stared at it. My hands were steady, my pulse was normal, and my flat was genuinely quiet. Really properly quiet for the first time in months. She called back 48 minutes later. Different voice this time. No sweetness. Full intensity. "Do you have any comprehension of what you've done?" "Yes. Ashton House is calling me. The caterers are calling me. I'm receiving invoice forwarded to my email with your name crossed out and mine written in. Do you understand how humiliating this is? I imagine it's about as humiliating as being called a cousin at your own sister's wedding. That's not the same thing. You're right. Yours costs £28,000. I raised you. I fed you. I drove you to school every single day for 12 years. And now, because of one small misunderstanding, you're going to bankrupt your own family. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. And I'm not bankrupt anything. You are. Fine. Absolutely fine. If you want to play this game, Eleanor, I'll tell everyone. I'll tell the entire village what kind of daughter abandons her family over money. I'd rather be the daughter you badmouth than the daughter you pretend doesn't exist." That stopped her. I heard her catch her breath. Sharp, involuntary, like she'd stepped into cold water. "You don't mean that," she said quietly. I do. Another long pause. Then the final weapon, the one she always keeps in reserve. Your father could have a heart attack over this stress. If he ends up hospitalized, that blood is on your hands. There it was, the guilt weapon, the emotional explosive. She'd deployed it when I moved to Leeds, when I missed Christmas, when I stopped sending money without being asked. Dad's health is between him and his doctor, I said. Not me and my credit card. She hung up again. This time I didn't stare at the phone. I filled the kettle and made tea. Proper tea, in a mug I'd bought for myself, in an apartment I'd earned, with work I was proud of. By Wednesday, Catherine had activated what I call the family phone tree. Every branch, every twig. Sophie called first, crying. The theatrical, messy kind she'd perfected since childhood. Eleanor, please. Marcus and I just got married. We don't have £28,000. If you don't pay, we have to. We're starting our lives together, and you're destroying it. Sophie, did you know Mum told the Ashtons I don't exist? A sniff. A pause. I mean, she said it would be simpler with the Ashtons. They're quite traditional. And having an older sister overseas who's unmarried and complicated it. It wasn't personal, Eleanor. You knew before the wedding. I didn't think they'd actually turn you away, but you didn't stop them. Silence. More sniffling. Can we please just address the bill? Marcus's parents are asking questions. Then perhaps it's time someone gave them honest answers. She hung up. Frank called that afternoon. My father almost never calls. He emails occasionally. Brief, factual messages about weather or football scores. Hearing his voice on the phone felt strange, like handling a tool you'd forgotten you owned. Eleanor, your mother is quite upset. I know. Can you be flexible on this? For the family? Dad, did you know she told people I'm not your daughter? A long exhale. The sound of a man who'd spent 35 years choosing the path of least resistance. That's not exactly what happened. Were you there when she called me a distant relative directly in front of me? Nothing. Then, very quietly, a click. He'd hung up. Every single one of them hung up when the questions got uncomfortable. I was starting to see a pattern. A family that preferred silence to truth. Aunt Margaret didn't wait for permission. She never does. Thursday morning, the same day the invoices were due, Margaret picked up her phone and called Victoria Ashton directly. She got the number from the wedding program she'd kept. Classic Margaret. I wasn't on the call. Margaret told me about it afterward, and she didn't soften any details. Victoria, this is Margaret Thornton. I'm Catherine Hartley's older sister. We met briefly at the reception. Oh yes, Margaret. Lovely to hear from you. I'm ringing because there's something you need to know. Catherine has 2 daughters, not 1. 2. The older one is Eleanor. She's 31, lives in Leeds, works in technology. She's the one who signed every vendor contract for that wedding. Every single one. And on Saturday, Catherine stopped her at the door and told her to leave. Margaret said the silence on Victoria's end lasted a full 10 seconds. Excuse me? Victoria said finally. The woman Catherine introduced as a distant relative. That was Eleanor, her eldest daughter. Eleanor flew 20 hours to be there. She paid the deposits from her own money. And Catherine turned her away because she'd been telling your family the Hartleys only had 1 child. Victoria's voice went cold. Thin. The kind of cold that comes from a woman who takes pride in knowing precisely who she's dealing with. Why would Catherine do this? You'd have to ask her. But I can tell you this. That girl flew 20 hours, signed every contract, and was turned away like a stranger at the door. And she still didn't make a scene. That's more dignity than Catherine deserves. Margaret said Victoria thanked her, mentioned she needed to make some calls, and rang off. The fuse was lit. And Derbyshire was a very small place. I didn't ask Margaret to make that call. But when she told me afterward, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. I felt genuinely seen. For the first time, someone in my family said aloud, "What happened to you was wrong." Thursday afternoon, I sat at my desk with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and methodically closed every open account. I emailed each vendor. Ashton House, Manchester Catering Company. Bloomsbury Floral Designs. Hartwell Photography. The message was identical for all 4. written with the precision of someone who writes technical documentation for a living. Dear vendor, this email serves as formal notice that I, Eleanor Hartley, the undersigned contract holder, do not authorize any further charges to my credit card on file. I am formally requesting that all outstanding invoices be redirected to the event organizers, the Hartley family of Ashford-in-the-Water, Derbyshire. Please confirm receipt of this notice. Regards, Eleanor Hartley. 4 emails. 4 confirmations within the hour. The vendors were professional and apparently unsurprised. Julian from Ashton House even replied personally. Understood, Miss Hartley. We've updated our records accordingly. I called my bank next. Cancelled the card linked to the contracts. Ordered a replacement with a new number. £28,000 in outstanding charges would now route directly to Catherine and Richard. The deposits, $2,500, were gone. Paid months earlier, non-refundable. I accepted that. Combined with my travel costs, the flights, the hotel, the gift, I was out £3,800. I sat with that number, £3,800. The price of learning that I would never be sufficient for them, that no amount of signing, paying, flying, or showing up would earn me a genuine place at a table they'd built without a chair for me. $3,800. Honestly, it was reasonable. I closed my laptop, rinsed my mug, and went for a walk along the river. The water was gray, the air was sharp, and for the first time in years, I felt like I owed nothing to anyone. Friday morning, one final thing, I opened a new email. Recipients, Catherine Hartley, Frank Hartley, Sophie Ashton. I drafted it once, deleted it. Too emotional. Drafted again, too harsh, deleted. Third attempt. Clean, direct, no adjectives I didn't require. Catherine, Frank, and Sophie. I have formally removed my payment authorization from all vendor contracts associated with Sophie's wedding. The outstanding balance of £28 has been redirected to you as the event organizers. I will not be discussing this further. I wish Sophie and Mark's a successful marriage. Going forward, please do not contact me regarding financial matters. If any of you want a relationship with me, it starts with genuine honesty, not invoices or excuses. Eleanor. I read it 4 times, checked for typos, checked the tone. Made certain there was nothing that could be called petty, vindictive, or cruel. There wasn't. It was a boundary, clean as a line on a map. I pressed send. Then I closed the laptop, put the kettle on, and stood by the window. My flat overlooks a small courtyard with a plane tree that drops leaves all over the neighbor's bicycle. It's not much, but it's mine. I pay the rent. I chose the curtains. Nobody here has ever told me I don't belong. For months, maybe years, I'd been carrying a weight I couldn't articulate. The constant calculation, am I doing enough? Am I giving enough? If I send more money, ring more often, fly home one more time, will they finally truly see me? Standing in that kitchen holding a cup of tea I'd made for myself, in an apartment I'd earned with work I was proud of, I felt the weight lift. I didn't write that email to hurt them. I wrote it so I'd stop hurting myself. Aunt Margaret kept me updated. She said she tried not to enjoy it, but she's a terrible liar. Victoria Ashton rang Catherine the same afternoon Margaret dropped the truth. The conversation, relayed to Margaret by a mutual acquaintance who happened to be at Victoria's house when the call came through, went about as expected. You lied to us, Catherine, Victoria said. Her voice was steady, not raised. The Ashtons don't do raised voices. You told us you had 1 daughter. We welcomed your family into ours based on trust. That trust is broken. Catherine attempted explanation. It was a private family matter. Eleanor and she had been estranged. Estranged? Victoria said. Your daughter signed every contract for this wedding. That's not estrangement. That's exploitation. Victoria told Catherine that the Ashtons wouldn't be covering the £28,000. That's between you and your vendors. We didn't sign those contracts. Apparently, neither did you. Garrett confronted Sophie that evening. Margaret got this part from Garrett's cousin, who'd heard it through the local grapevine, which is to say, everyone in Derbyshire. You have an older sister, Garrett said. An actual sister. She paid for our entire wedding, and your mother threw her out, Sophie cried. It's complicated, Marcus. It's not complicated. It's a lie. Your family lied to my family on our wedding day. The newlyweds' first proper argument happened 4 days into married life. Over a sister the groom didn't know existed, and a bill neither of them could manage. Brooke and Garrett would ultimately take out a personal loan for £28. The Ashtons helped co-sign, not from generosity, but because their name was on the event and they didn't want vendors pursuing them. The fairy tale wedding now had a monthly payment attached to it. Derbyshire is the sort of place where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has an opinion by Wednesday. By the following week, the story had made its way through the church, the cafe on the high street, the parents' network, and the golf club. The details shifted slightly with each retelling, the way they always do, but the core remained unchanged. Eleanor Hartley had hidden her eldest daughter, turned her away at the wedding, and then sent her the bill. Bev Henderson, Catherine's neighbor of 17 years, stopped her in the church car park after the service. "Catherine, I had no idea you had 2 daughters. How is it I've never met your older girl?" Catherine tried the script she'd been rehearsing. "Eleanor lives abroad. We're not as close as I'd wish. It's quite painful, actually." Bev nodded slowly. "Margaret tells the story differently," she said. Catherine stopped attending that church. She switched to a Methodist congregation 2 villages over where nobody knew the Hartleys by name. Frank became quieter than usual, which is noteworthy. He stopped visiting the hardware store on Saturdays. He stopped sitting on the porch in the evenings. The few people who saw him said he looked like someone carrying something he couldn't set down. Catherine blamed Margaret. Rang her one morning, voice shaking. "You've destroyed my family." Margaret's response, as she told me afterward, was brief. "I didn't expose you, Catherine. I simply stopped covering for you." Catherine hung up. Added Margaret to the growing list of family members she wasn't speaking to. The image Catherine had spent years constructing. Devoted mother with a perfect little family, was crumbling. Not because anyone attacked it. It crumbled because someone finally told the truth. 2 weeks after the wedding, a text from Sophie. Long, rambling. I could almost hear her crying while composing it. "Eleanor, I'm genuinely sorry about everything. It all spiraled beyond control. I didn't anticipate Mum would say those things to the Ashtons. I genuinely didn't. Garrett is furious with me. His parents barely acknowledge me. The loan payments start next month, and we're already struggling with the apartment deposit. I know this is a lot to ask, but could you possibly cover part of the balance? Even half? I promise I'd repay you. You're my sister and I love you, and I just need help right now." I read it sitting at my desk during lunch. Read it again. Then a 3rd time, searching for something specific. An apology for turning me away. An acknowledgement that she knew beforehand and didn't stop it. A single sentence admitting, "What happened to you at the door was wrong. It wasn't there." The entire message was about Sophie's problems, Garrett's anger, the loan, the apartment, the Ashtons' coldness. My pain wasn't mentioned once. It was a crisis update dressed up in apologies clothing. She apologized for the circumstances, not for the wound. "There's a difference," I typed carefully. "Sophie, I'm genuinely sorry you're struggling. I really am. But I can't help financially. The boundary I've established isn't about money. It's about being treated like genuine family. Not the kind that gets erased when it's inconvenient. When you're ready to discuss that instead of invoices, I'm available. Eleanor." I pressed send, placed my phone in my desk drawer, went back to work. She didn't respond. Not that day. Not that week. I wasn't surprised. She'd never understood what to do with me when I wasn't providing something she needed. 1 month after the wedding, an email from Frank. My father sends emails. He rings perhaps 3 times yearly, and when he does, he discusses weather or football. He has never, in 31 years of my life, written me anything beyond a birthday card. So when I saw his name in my inbox with the subject line, "From Dad," I sat up in my chair. "Eleanor, I recognize I should have spoken that day at Ashton House. I didn't. I stood there like furniture while your mother handled it, and I said absolutely nothing. I don't have a satisfactory explanation. I was a coward. That's the truth. Your mother and I are addressing the bill with the vendors directly. We don't require your assistance." I'm writing because I wanted you to understand something. I'm genuinely sorry. I should have walked you inside. I'll carry that with me. I read it 5 times. I read it on the train home from work and once more sitting in my flat with the lights off. It wasn't perfect. It didn't resolve anything. He didn't confront Catherine. He didn't demand she apologize. He didn't explain why he'd spent decades choosing comfort over his own daughter. But it was genuine, and it was the first genuine thing anyone in my family had offered me since this began. I didn't reply immediately. I required time. A week later, I wrote back, "Dad, thank you genuinely. That means more than I can articulate. I'm not prepared to return or to pretend everything is settled, but I've read your email and I'll keep reading it. Eleanor." Brief, careful, leaving the door open precisely 1 inch. Not wide enough to be walked through, but not locked. He didn't write back. I didn't anticipate he would. But he'd said it, and I'd received it. 6 months have passed since that Saturday at Ashton House. I received a promotion. Senior engineer at the fintech company I've been with for 3 years. My manager cited leadership under pressure in the evaluation. She wasn't aware of the scope of it. I've started therapy, not specifically because of the wedding, but because of the 31 years preceding it. We're unpacking something she calls earned over responsibility. The conviction that if I perform adequately enough, sacrifice sufficiently, carry enough, the people I love will finally truly see me. It's the mechanism that powered every check I wrote, every flight I booked, every instance I said fine when I meant this wounds me. I video call Margaret every other Sunday. She prepares coffee, I prepare tea, and we converse for an hour about everything and nothing. She keeps me updated on Derbyshire happenings. Not to gossip, but so I'm not blindsided. Catherine and Frank have repaid £8,000 of the £28,000. They used a portion of their retirement savings. The remainder sits on the loan Sophie and Garrett took out. The monthly payments are a persistent source of tension in their household. Garrett's parents are civil but withdrawn. Margaret still hasn't forgiven Catherine. Sophie and Garrett remain married. Margaret says they're in couples therapy. She says Garrett's trying, but the foundation cracked immediately, and those fractures don't seal easily. Catherine hasn't contacted me, hasn't emailed, hasn't sent a single text. Margaret says she refers to the situation as Eleanor's tantrum. I suppose that's more convenient than acknowledging what it genuinely is. I don't despise my mother. I've invested considerable therapy hours ensuring I don't. But I've abandoned pretending that her version of affection didn't harm me. It did. And maintaining that fiction was destroying me gradually, one signed contract at a time. I'm not sharing this story so you'll despise my mother. She's human. She's frightened. She constructed an image of a perfect family because the real one felt insufficient. And somewhere in that process, I became the element that didn't fit. That's not an excuse. It's simply what occurred. And I think becoming an adult means accepting that the people who raised you are equally just people navigating their own anxieties and failures. But I'm sharing this because perhaps you're experiencing a version of it. Perhaps you're the one who travels 20 hours, literally or figuratively, to show up for people who won't hold the door for you. Perhaps you're the one signing the contracts, absorbing the costs, carrying the silence, and describing it as affection because you don't recognize what else to name it. I did that for an extended period. I described it as obligation. I called it family. I called it maturity. And every instance I wrote a check or swallowed an insult, or pretended the empty chair at the table didn't sting. I relinquished a piece of myself. A boundary isn't punishment. It's not retaliation. It's not a weapon. A boundary is the instant you declare, I'm worth more than this, and then you demonstrate it. 28,000. That's what my freedom cost. And I don't regret a single pound I didn't pay. If you're the person who consistently pays emotionally, monetarily, and spiritually for a place at a table that was never constructed for you, perhaps it's time to construct your own table and sit at its head. I didn't lose my family that Saturday at Ashton House. I found myself, and genuinely, she was worth the wait. Thank you for remaining until the conclusion of this one. It truly means something. I'd like to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have paid the £28,000 or would you have established the boundary? Drop pay or boundary in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. If this story touched something authentic in you, hit that like button and subscribe. I share stories like this every week on Velvet Vengeance. Stories about family, about establishing boundaries, about discovering your voice when the people nearest to you attempt to silence it. And if you want additional content, check the description for another story I believe you'll connect with. I'll see you in the next one.